All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to start out by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak, Wadash. Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father, meaning He is, He exists, He to be. Ba'in Hadash, name. Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Shai being the name of the only begotten Son, meaning He delivered, He saves, Rachak, Wadash, Holy Spirit. Double honors to the apostles and elders, great most on the well, peace and blessings to the elected of nation Israel. Back at it again with another lesson through the spirit and fire of Yahweh Shai. Hello, Willen's lesson is edifying. I'm the brother Ottawa, just getting straight to it through the spirit. All right, we back out here again another week through the spirit and fire of Yahweh Shai, man. It's truly a privilege to be out here and do the work of the Lord, you know. And we understand the time frames that we're living in. You know, it's only so much longer till all hell completely break loose. Okay. You know, it's only so much longer, man. All right. You know, so through the spirit, we're just gonna get straight to it. Okay, we're just gonna get straight to it, man. Abarat is out of camp lesson is edifying. So on the 1st of April, which is Wednesday, we have the Pesach coming in. All right, Pesach meaning Passover. You know, and that's exactly what we're praying for. We're praying that Yahweh Shai pass over us, man. You know, and spare us in the day of judgment. Okay, you know, because we are clearly at the end, and it's about to get it's already getting real out here, but it's about to get even worse through the spirit of power of Yahweh Shai. So now's the time to gird up your loins, okay, and get right with the Lord and endure, stay the course, man. Okay, because it's only a matter of time before all hell truly breaks loose, and you know uh there's not gonna be no pauses, no breaks in that day. It's gonna be all gas, no breaks in that day, man. Jacob's trouble coming at you full speed. Okay. And I actually wanted to start at Isaiah 31 through the spirit. I know we were talking about the Passover. Okay. And you know, we are in modern day Egypt. You know, Egypt representing America. Okay. And we're praying Yahweh Shai pass over us in this modern day Egypt as he passed over our forefathers back in ancient Egypt, which was us back then. You know, if you can receive it. Isaiah chapter 31. And I'm gonna start at verse 1. Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help and stay on horses and trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. Okay? Yeah. All right. So woe to them that go down to Egypt for help. They go down to America. They put their trust in this man's system. Okay? But they don't look to the Holy One of Israel, man. They don't look to Yahweh Shai to be their succor and their stay. You know, but they'll trust in Esau's system, his military might, but even that's failing. You know, a lot of troops are reluctant to go ahead and fight Iran. Okay, Iran putting that pressure on America. You know, and even though America tries to paint the picture like they're the hero, you know, this whole endeavor of them going over there to Iran with Israel, all these other things, is backfiring on them, man. You know, and you even had a former NATO general say that the war with Iran is not looking too good right now, man. Okay, so it shows you that the Lord is not with this man, and his kingdom is going down. So for everyone that puts their trust in this place, woe unto you, destruction unto you. All right, Isaiah 31:2. Yeah, he also is wise and will bring evil and will not call back his words, but will arise against the house of the evildoers and against the help of them that work iniquity. Okay, exactly. So you thinking you gonna outsmart the Most High? Well, the Most High is wise too. Okay, and and it says he will rise against the house of the evildoers, man. Meaning anyone who's wicked, okay, and is not looking to seek after the Lord, Most High gonna rise up against them. Okay? It says, and against the help of them that work iniquity. So those that want to help the workers of iniquity and those that are working iniquity, Most High gonna take them all out, man. Like the scriptures say, help not a sinner. Okay, so you shouldn't be reaching out your hand to these wicked niggas, man. All right. Verse 3, now the Egyptians are men and not Yahweh Shemashai, and their horses flesh and not spirit. It says, when the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is hoping shall fall down, and they all shall fail together. Right. So it says the Egyptians are men and not Yahweh Shemashai. Meaning what? You want to put your trust in America, you want to put your trust in Babylon, you putting your trust in mortal men. You're gonna fail. Okay? You're bound to fail. You know? Psalms 118 and verse 5, I called upon the Lord in distress. See, that's who we call upon in our distress. We call upon Yahweh Shemashai. It says, I called upon the Lord in distress. The Lord answered me and set me in a large place. The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do unto me? Okay? Right. So when Yahweh Shemashai is on your side, there's no need to fear what man may be able to do unto you. Because man can only do unto you what the Lord suffers him to. The same thing Yahweh said when Pontius Pilate was trying to flex on him and say, you know, answerest thou not me? Right? You ain't going to answer me. He said, don't you know I have power to crucify thee and to release thee? Yahweh checked him right then and there. He said, look, you wouldn't have no power over me unless it was given to you from my Father. All right? And then he said, the ones that delivered me unto you had the greater sin. Talking about who? Israel, his own people. You know? And that's another precept backing up how Jake surpasses the deeds of the wicked. You know? Jake being more wicked than the heathen. Because it was Israel who delivered Yahweh Shai to the Romans, man. Okay? It was the Jews. You know? Some of them repented, but a lot of them didn't, man. You know? So they're going to be destroyed. But the point of the matter is that man can only do unto you what the Heavenly Father allows. Okay? So it says, the Lord taketh my part with them that help me. Therefore shall I see my desire upon them that hate me. Exactly. So we're going to see our desires upon our enemies, man. Which ultimately we're going to see the downfall of our enemies. And that's one of the joy of a man that is living. He that liveth to see the downfall of his enemy. Okay? So we're going to see that through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemashai. All right? Lord willing, we be a part of that elect number. We're going to live to see that. Okay? Verse 8, it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. Exactly. So it's better to trust in Yahweh Shemashai than to put your confidence in man. Put your confidence in princes. It says, it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in princes. Okay? So you want to sit here and put your trust in these other nations, put your trust in Esau, Edom and his government, his military might, his infrastructure, you're going to fail. Verse 10, all nations compass me about, but in the name of the Lord will I destroy them. They compass me about, yea, they compass me about, but in the name of the Lord will I destroy them. They compass me about like bees. They are quenched as fire, as the fire of thorns. For in the name of the Lord I will destroy them. Right. Okay. So that's enough on that. These nations, anyone compassing us round about, hey, Yahweh Shemashai gonna take them out, man. Because the Lord, he fights for his servants. You know, that's the thing. People think that we're just out here on our own merit, doing this by our own might, our own strength. No, man. We're doing this through the strength and the spirit of the power of Yahweh Shemashai. That's the only way we be able to be out here and be able to sustain doing the work of the Lord, man. Because this thing is not as easy as it may looks. All right? This thing is not as easy as it looks. You know, to be out here to serve the Lord, man, There's many factors that go into it that, people don't see. All they see is brothers on the camera with the garments on, the Bible's out, pulling precepts. But there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes, man. And then the weekly maintenance to get you out here to the highways and byways, man. Because hey, guess what? The Lord got to maintain the spirit on you throughout the week, you know, and that carries over into the next week. It builds up one upon another. All right. And then of course you got to know what you're doing when you come out here, man. You got to know how to move. You got to know how to behave yourself. You got to know what you're talking about. Okay. And you got to be prepared for the elements, standing upon your feet, and I'm not necessarily complaining. I'm just acknowledging the fact that this thing is not as simple as it may seem, man. Right. And it is a light affliction at the end of the day. The light, the Lord's burden is light. Right. Yahweh Shai is not asking much out of us. And at the end of the day, this is our reasonable service. But you got to give credit to where it's due, man. And that's why Yahweh Shai is going to reward his servants, for doing the work, man, day in and day out, week in and week out, man, through the spirit of power, Yahweh Shai, faithfully and consistently serving the Lord, man. Okay? Because that's what this thing is all about. Isaiah 31 and 3, I'll read it again. Now the Egyptians are men and not Yahweh Shai. It's a little windy out here. Hey, but the Lord is great, man, because it looked like it was about to rain. Well, it actually did start drizzling. And then, Jake got out of here. I said, hey, fuck it, man. It's in the Lord's hands, whether it rain or not, right? And then the Lord started making it sunny. just like 30 minutes ago, it was dark as hell out here, man. So what do you about my shot? And see, this is who we put our trust in. Okay? We put our trust in the Lord, man, who controls all factors that go on in the earth. All right? Isaiah 31 and 3, now the Egyptians are men and not Yahweh Shai, and their horses flesh and not spirit. Yeah, because Yahweh Shai's horses are spirit. Those chariots, those heavenly hosts. And you had this devil, J.D. Vance, say, oh, he believes the UFOs are demons. Right? Now, is it possible that, some of the left-hand spirits can ride in a chariot? I don't necessarily doubt it, right? But at the end of the day, Esau just trying to throw out confusion to demonize the chariots. That's really what it is, right? But we know through the spirit, those are the heavenly hosts. And of course, according to an Edomite, he'll look at it like it's a demon because they're against this man and his system. It says, when the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is open shall fall down, and they all shall fail together. Right. So if the Lord is against you, you're going to fail. Ain't no way you'll be able to prevail against the Lord. Verse 4, but thus hath the Lord spoken unto me, and vice versa. If the Lord wants you to win, there's no one who can stop you. Okay? Verse 4, for thus hath the Lord spoken unto me, like as the lion and the young lion roaring on his prey, when a multitude of shepherds is called forth against him, he will not be afraid of their voice, nor abase himself for the noise of them. So shall the Lord of hosts come down to fight for Mount Zion and for the hill thereof. Exactly, man. Okay? So, Yahweh Shai, he's going to fight for his elect like a lion against shepherds. Like he said, the lion doesn't abase himself for the noise of them, right? So, in other words, when a lion is roaring on his prey, and then you see the shepherds come out, try to, scare the lion away. Got their sticks in their hands, trying to. The lion don't just back down, right? If anything, he pressed the issue. You know what I mean? So that's the same spirit the Lord's coming in. The Lord's not about to back down when it comes to delivering his elect out of the hands of these devils, man. All right, Yahweh Shai is going to step for his elect, man. Verse 5, here's the point. As birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending also, he will deliver it, and passing over, he will preserve it. Okay, as birds flying. And that's a precept going into the chariots of the Lord. All right, it says the Lord will defend Jerusalem, referring to the elect of the nation Israel. Okay, because the modern day Jerusalem, which really in the spirit is Israel, right? The Israelites, the tribes, but the land of Jerusalem right now, that land is not getting defended. That land is getting attacked. That land is getting targeted. Okay, why? Because you got those gutter rats, those small hats over there in our land. The Most High is not with them. That's why they're going through the shit that they're going through, man. And it's only about to get worse out there. It's going to lead up to the point where Russia, these other nations, they're going to shoot missiles on the land of Israel and America. But it said what? Passing over, he will preserve it. Okay, you go into the word Passover in Isaiah. Let's get the word Passover in Isaiah. Strong's H6452. Pasach. Pasach. It says to pass over, spring over, to skip, pass over. Okay? So it says to pass over, man. Lord gonna pass over us. Operators are we be part of that elect number. And we are coming into the time of the Passover, which is a few days away. And as the scriptures say, we're supposed to purge all that old leaven out of our house. Okay, that we may become what? A new lump. So how do we purge that leaven? Okay, which that leaven ultimately goes into taking away all these different bad habits, weirdo feelings you may have between members of the body, grudges, certain things you need to work on in the spirit. That's how you purge that leaven. Getting rid of hypocrisy, right? Getting rid of all these different negative things that could potentially hold you back from the kingdom of heaven. Put it like that. Okay? And you could look at the Passover like a spiritual reset, like a spiritual spring cleaning. Because technically we are in a new year, right? Which is the first month of the year according to the Hebrew calendar, which is the month of Abayab, aka Abib, right? And the Passover is supposed to be on the 10th day of that month, which leads us up to April 1st. All right, and April 1st is known as April Fool's Day, but this ain't no joke, man. This ain't no joke. Okay, and really the Passover is like the calm before the storm. All right, the days prior to the Passover is like the calm before the storm, and one of the main reasons that we remember the Passover for is for Yahushai's sacrifice, because Yahushua was taken on the night of the Passover, and he was crucified during the week of unleavened bread. So when we keep the Passover, we remember Yahushua, right? And when we eat the lamb, you eat it in haste. Like it says, not a bone of him was broken. So you're not supposed to break a bone of the lamb. You roast it with fire. You eat the bitter herbs, which is the horseradish. You had these weak ass niggas, man. What they name? Apostle calls them Heckle and Jekyll, right? Eating them two dudes oh, I'm gonna be eating lettuce because horseradish is disgusting, right? Nigga, it's not supposed to be good, nigga. It's called bitter herbs. It's bitter for a reason. That bitterness is number one for us to remember the bitterness of our captivity in Egypt, but also the bitterness of Yahweh Shai's sufferings, man. Okay? It's supposed to be bitter. It's supposed to make your brain sweat, man. You eat that horseradish, you be like, God damn. You know, your nose getting cleared out, and there's a lot of health benefits of it too. Okay, but there's it's supposed to be bitter, man. You know, it's not supposed to be pleasant. Captivity wasn't pleasant. Niggas talk about they gonna eat lettuce, man, and that's the problem with Jake. Jake always want to do their own fucking thing. Here it is, the Lord instruct us, and now does it um verbatim say eat horseradish? Not necessarily, but at the end of the day, you know, really through the spirit, that's the way to go, man. Jake want to go ahead and eat romaine lettuce and shit, right? Jake just like to go do their own thing. That's really what it is with Jake, man. So let's look up some benefits of that horseradish root. I ain't gonna spend too much time on it. Just curious. It says recent studies have shown that components of horseradish fight many different types of cancer cells. It's anti-inflammatory. For centuries, horseradish has been utilized as an anti-inflammatory and pain reliever. If you have lower back pain or are suffering from a headache, horseradish might offer the relief that you're looking for. And the scriptures speak about how the Lord created herbs out of the earth for medicine. That's Sirach, the 38th chapter. It says high in fiber and other nutrients. Horseradish does not contain many calories, but is high in fiber. This combination aids the processes of the digestive system and promotes weight loss. And it's not just digestion that gets a boost. The sinigrin within horseradish also acts as a natural diuretic to help prevent UTIs. In addition to being high in fiber, horseradish is also rich with vitamin C, folate, calcium, and among others. It says rich in antioxidants. Horseradish contains phytochemicals, antioxidants that have a positive effect on human health by preventing health issues caused by free radicals. Helps to fight cancer. Horseradish is rich in glucosinolate called sinigrin. Sinigrin has a positive effect on preventing different types of the C word, including stomach, colon, prostate, liver, and lung C word. Recent studies show that horseradish has 10 times more C word fighting glucosinolates than broccoli. Fights respiratory illness. Horseradish contains sulfur, which aids in cleaning sinus passages from mucus. I believe that to be true. Because when you eat it, your nose be on fire. It says, does it cure the common cold? No, but it does help with some of the congestion and other symptoms. You know, and I'm sure there's plenty of more plethora of benefits. But you know, I ain't gonna get too deep. Okay, through the spirit, you know, of course, you can do the research your own time. But yeah, man. All right, that's a part of keeping the feast of the Passover, taking the bitter herbs, taking the unleavened bread. Okay, And so, let's just read about it through the Spirit. Let's read Exodus 12, because Passover is in a couple of days from now, man. All right, and like I said, this just feels like the calm before the storm, and to really examine yourself and get your spirit prepared, because brothers always say this, and we hope it, we mean it, we're sincere when we say it. But hey, this just might be the last Passover, man. This just might be the last Passover. So all hell, I believe through the Spirit that some shit getting ready to go down after the Pesach, man. You know, and we'll just have to wait and see. But I have a strong feeling, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way. Look at everything that's already going down prior to the Pesach, man. So this really just might be the last one. But at the end of the day, what mainly matters is sincerely serving Yahweh B'Shem Ashai every day that we are above ground, man. Okay, and becoming a new lump, purging out that old leaven, becoming a new lump. Because if you partake in this feast, you ultimately partaking in Yahweh Shai, man. Okay, and that Pesach mentality really is supposed to be year round, but this is like hitting that reset button, hitting that refresh button through the Spirit of power, Yahweh Shem Shai, and that spirit is supposed to carry you into the rest of the year, leading up to the next Pesach. Speaking to myself first and foremost, this is the book of Exodus chapter 12, starting at verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you, which is the month of Abib, Abayab, which let's get into the Hebrew of what Abayab means. So this is Exodus 13:4. This day came ye out in the month of Abib. So we go into the word Abib. Abayab. It says fresh, young, barley ears. Month of ear forming, of greening of crop, of growing green. Abib, month of Exodus, Passover, March or April. So basically, it's like the springtime. When the crops are fresh and getting ready to harvest. Okay. It says meaning to be tender, green, i.e., which is an example, a young ear of grain, hence the name of the month, Abib or Nisan. It says Abib, ear, green ears of corn. Okay. All right, and then Nisan in the Hebrew is Na Yasan. Na Yasan, Strong's H 5212. Na Yasan. It says their flight, the first month of the Jewish calendar corresponding to March or April. Okay. Right. And that's when we took flight out of Egypt. So call Lam Labash Mashai. All right. So getting back to Exodus 12 and I'll read verse 2 again. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Verse 3. It says, Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month, they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your account for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish. Yes, sir. It says, a male of the first year, ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It says, your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year, a year. It says, ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it up unto the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. Now, of course, just a quick disclaimer. Um, we're rehearsing the righteous acts. So when you read certain scriptures that that we're reading in Exodus 12, unfortunately, man, we can't keep this to the T because we're not in our kingdom. In the kingdom, we're going to be able to keep the Passover correctly, you know. But right now, we're rehearsing the righteous acts, and it's more so focusing on the intent of the high holy day than the ritual of the high holy day. Of course, we would love to keep the ritual of the high holy day to the best of our ability, but we can't, man. We're in captivity. Some of us don't have the living situation to be able to literally put blood on our doorposts, man. You put blood on your doorpost, your landlord be like, "What the hell?" Thinking you doing voodoo or something, man. You know. And it's a lot of other factors that get into it. So through the Spirit, that's why we're under grace and we are rehearsing the righteous acts. Okay, it's a rehearsal, But certain things we fall short on, but that's where the blood of Yahweh Shai covers us, man. Okay, but once again, it's more so the intent of the feast day, okay, and what it's symbolic of, and what we need to learn from it in the Spirit, than more so the ritual aspect of it. Of course, if you can keep the ritual aspect of it to the T, then by all means. But in most members, most brothers and sisters cases, that's not the case, man. Okay, like for instance, how there's so many different ways I can explain it. We're supposed to get a lamb. Well, we'll read about it, right? It says, I'll start at verse 5. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. So that right there. You go to the store, you go buy some lamb. How do you know it's a male of a first year, man? You know what I'm saying? You don't. You don't know. You're eating it out of faith. We're rehearsing the righteous acts, man. But technically, you could be grabbing a lamb that's older than a year old, or maybe not even a male by chance, man. So you just don't know. Verse 6, it says, and ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. Verse 8, and they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs shall they eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire his head with his legs and with the pertinence thereof. Okay, so you're supposed to roast it, the whole lamb. Okay, it says, and ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And thus shall ye eat it with your loins girded, and your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. So we could keep that aspect, right? You got a staff, you got some shoes, right? You eat it in haste, right? It says it is the Lord's Passover. Which that word Passover, once again, in the Hebrew is Pesach. Let me see if it's a different Strong's H in Exodus 12 than Isaiah 31. All right, yep. It's Strong's H6453, Pesach. It says Passover, sacrifice of Passover, animal victim of the Passover, festival of the Passover. Yeah, it says of the Jewish Passover, the festival, or the victim Passover offering, right? Which ultimately, that's our Lord Yahweh Shai. Okay, he was that sacrificial lamb, the lamb of the Most High without blemish. Verse 12, for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. Okay, beautiful, beautiful, man. So who was that destroyer that Yahweh Shai sent to destroy all the firstborn in the land of Egypt that night? It was our Lord Yahweh Shai, which Lord willing we'll read about that later on. Abaradazah. This is Exodus chapter 12 and verse 13. And that was one of the main reasons for Yahweh Shai bringing the plagues on Egypt. Okay, so he could bring trouble upon Egypt, Pharaoh, and their idols, man. Okay, Exodus 12 and 13. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. Okay, so that was what the blood over the doorpost symbolized. You put the blood on the doorpost so that when the destroyer will pass through, he'll see, okay, they got the blood on their doorpost. They're keeping the Pesach. They're good. Move to the next one. You know. And there was a lot of death that night. So the Passover is not, an Israelite party. Okay, it's a solemn assembly. It's a solemn assembly, man. Okay, it's a feast that we were supposed to take with solemnity. Solemnity. Okay, it's supposed to be solemn. Serious minded. Okay, you leading up to the Pesach, you're mourning, you're purging the flesh, you're getting your spirit right. Treat it like an Israelite party. Yeah, okay, you had Josiah's Passover, but you got to understand the context. Josiah's Passover was such a triumphal moment because they haven't kept the Pesach in a long time, so it was a rejoicing thing for them. And as well, a lot of Israel got joined together during Josiah's Passover. Even some of the northern kingdom was joined together because remember, by that time the kingdom was split. So at that time frame, the Pesach being an Israelite party, it was somewhat appropriate. Okay, it was somewhat appropriate due to, it was like a family reunion almost, man. And a rehearsing of the righteous acts because Israel hasn't kept the Pesach in a long time during that time frame, man. But now in these times when we keep the Passover, we keep it to remember Yahweh Shai, man. That's what we keep it for. We don't keep it to be playing games on that day. Okay. So this is Exodus chapter 12, verse 14. It says, "And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day unto the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel." Okay, so we're not supposed to eat leavened bread. Stay away from leavening agents, leavening products, right? And if you just want to keep it safe, man, just keep it simple. Eat like protein, like steak, chicken, eggs, turkey. Okay, fruits, vegetables. Okay, you could eat the unleavened bread, which Amalek calls matzah, right? Which we have our Hebrew form of the word as well. Okay, which I'll grab that because why not, right? Because it's similar. The way we say it is actually similar. The way Amalek says it. We say strong. This is Strong's H 4682 matazah. Matazah. Amalek says matzah. We say matazah. All right. It says unleavened bread cake without leaven. It says in the sense of greedily devouring for sweetness, properly sweetness, concretely sweet, i.e., not sour or bittered with yeast, right? Like sourdough, that's a no-no. Because it's not solely about yeast, but it's about the leavening agents, which yeast, of course, is not as prohibited during the Pesach. specifically an unfermented cake or loaf. Elliptically, the festival of Passover, because no leaven was then used, unleavened bread, cake without leaven. Yeah, yeah, because we had to eat it in haste. We were, the Egyptians wanted us out of there. Hey, I found it so funny when you read in the scriptures when the Egyptians was like, "Man, get them out of here." Pharaoh was like, "Hey, go serve your God and bless me also." That's how you know the heathen knew Yahweh Shai is the true power, man. He said, "Bless me also, man." Yes, sir. Call them Labashim Shai. Exodus chapter 12 and verse 16. It says, "And in the first day there shall be an holy convocation, and in the seventh day there shall be an holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you." Right. So on a day of the Passover and on the last day of the Passover, those days are treated as the Sabbath day. So the Passover, you're really not supposed to work on the Passover. You know, you're not supposed to work on the Passover. Um, so if you can get work off, of course, take the day off. But once again, we in captivity. So unfortunately, if you do have to work on the Passover, which I hope you don't, but if you do, you know, we in Babylon, man. We in Babylon. But if you can get the day off, if you truly can get the day off, get the day off, man. Right? Because it's, once again, we're rehearsing the righteous acts, and it is treated as a Sabbath day. Okay. It says, "And in the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and in the seventh day there shall be a holy convocation. To you, no manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you." Right. So it's a holy convocation. It says, "And ye shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for in this self same day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt." It says, "Therefore shall ye observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever." Right? So this is a high holy day that we're supposed to keep, okay, for all generations. It says, "In the first month of the 14th day of the month at even," Slakia, 14th day. I said 10th day earlier. It's the 14th day. It says, "In the first month on the 14th day of the month at even, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 1 and 20th day of the month at even." Right? So that's a 7-day feast, because 14 plus 7 is 21. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses, for whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land. Right. So no leaven found in your house. You're supposed to purge the leaven out of your house. Okay. Like if you have your own spot, you clear out the cabinet, all the leaven products, you get it out the crib, man. And you figure out your situation, what may work best for you, whether you have like a storage outside of the home, whether you stuff it in the car, whatever the case may be. But in the house, there's supposed to be no leaven. Now, if you're under a living situation where you live with people who are in the world, right? You may be under someone else's roof, or you got a roommate, whatever the case may be. So the best thing to do in that circumstance is just take out the stuff in the home that's yours that pertains to leaven products. You know what I'm saying? And just get rid of that. Because once again, we are rehearsing the righteous acts, man. Okay? It says, "In the first month I read that, Slakia. Verse 20, "Ye shall eat nothing leavened in all your habitations, shall ye eat unleavened bread." Right. So, you go get you some matazah, all right? Matazah, and you go get you some. You get it from a lot of different places. You go to like an Amalek supermarket. You can go to Publix, or depending on your grocery store, right? Publix is like the famous grocery store down here in Florida. But a lot of these places right now, because it is in season, they got the matzah and all these different other things. You may have to go to like an international supermarket, right? You may even have to order it off Amazon. I don't know. Do what you got to do, right? Do what you got to do, okay? But there's a lot of different things that you could do during the Pesach or the week of the Pesach, But like I said, once again, if you want to just keep it simple, you don't want to have to worry about looking at all these ingredients, man. Just keep it simple, Just eat you some proteins like some steak, chicken, eggs, right? Turkey, all right, beef, lamb, right? Goat, and then fruits, vegetables, rice. You know what I'm saying? Of course, with most rice, you should be okay. Some rice does have leavening agents in it, so you just got to be careful. But just some simple as rice, if brothers eat rice or not. Some brothers don't be on the carbs like that. You know what I'm saying? And just keep it simple, man. It's only 7 days. You'll be all right. Okay, you can get you some corn tortillas. That's another thing too. You can eat corn tortillas as well. You don't necessarily have to eat the matzah. You can eat corn tortillas. But once again, with the corn tortillas, you gotta make sure that it's just simply corn tortilla. It's not flour, right? Because the flour tortilla be having yeast, and even some corn tortillas be having yeast. So you gotta be careful. But once again, just keep it simple. It's only 7 days. Just keep it simple. Of course, you can get the list of all the leavening agents. You could do that. Nobody gonna be stopping you with that. You could do that if you want to, but it's just easy. You just keep it simple. You know what I'm saying? So this is Exodus chapter 12 and verse 21. Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, draw out and take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover. And ye shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin and strike the lintel and the two side posts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians. And when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. And you shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass. And that's another thing too, right? Reading it in context, they weren't supposed to leave their houses because the destroyer was literally outside destroying niggas, man. You know what I'm saying? But now, I'm not saying for brothers to, leave a crib if you feel condemned in your spirit to leave a crib on the night of the Pesach, which, where are you going? That's the real question. Like, if you just leaving the crib to go do some bullshit, stay your ass inside. But if you leaving the house, what I'm saying, to just step outside, once again, this is kind of like a let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind, because Yahushua and the disciples, of course, the prophecy had to be fulfilled, but they went to the Garden of Gethsemane on the night of Pesach, man. So, what I'm saying is discrepancies, of course. We're rehearsing the righteous acts. You know what I mean? But, if you want to be safe, hey, you could just stay in the crib that night. Just stay in the crib. There's no reason to be out and about anyways. It's a Sabbath day. Just take it easy, man. And that's the reoccurring thing. In the week of the Pesach, the feast of unleavened bread, right? Just keep it simple. Just keep it simple. Just keep it simple, man. All right. But once again, we are rehearsing the righteous acts. So we can't be over righteous, but also we want to move with fear too. We have to find that balance. Okay. It says, and ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass when ye be come to the land which the Lord will give you, according as he hath promised, that ye shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye by this service? That ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses, and the people bowed the head and worshiped. Okay? So they were giving praise to Yahweh Shema Shai. It says, and the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. So the Most High, he smote the firstborn, man. You know, uh, he was getting man and beast. And this is exactly how Yahweh Shem is about to do in these last days as well when he takes out Babylon, America, the modern day Egypt. He's going to destroy both man and beast. Okay? Verse 30, and Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, but there was not a house where there was not one dead. So Yahushua came through and did his thing, man, because Yahushua was that destroyer back then in ancient Egypt. Okay? So the Lord got busy that night through the spirit of power of Yahweh Shai. Thine almighty word leaped down from heaven. In verse 31, Exodus 12 and 31. This thing keep moving. You need to get like a weight, you know. They might have something like that already invented, but like you put like a weight on the tripod, just keep it steady. You know, I'm sure they probably already have that invented. Anyways, it says, what's the saying? Necessity breeds invention, something like that. And that's how you know we Israel, man. Jake just be coming up with shit. Lord be working on our minds. All your top inventors really was Israel, man. Was Jake. You know, a lot of top scientists be Jake too, right? Anyways, it says, verse 31, Exodus 12 and 31, and he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as ye have said. Also take your flocks and your herds, and as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. I love that precept right there, because it shows you Pharaoh is acknowledging the power of the Lord, man. He had no choice but to acknowledge the power of the Lord. Okay? And that's the same sentiment Yahweh is about to do with everybody else. They're going to have no choice but to acknowledge the power of the Lord. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we be all dead men. So that's why we had to eat the Passover in haste. You know, it's symbolic of us getting pushed out of Egypt. Verse 34, and the people took their dough before it was leavened, their netting troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. Right. And that's the same sentiment that's going to happen with the modern day Egyptians. Esau, Edom, you know. And, you know, you had that false prophecy back in 2019 saying how 400-year prophecy, we're going to leave America in 2019 because it's 400 years of us being in Egypt. That shit was a false prophecy, clearly, because here we are at 2026 in Babylon the Great till this very day. 7 years later, we still in this motherfucker, man. But also, we didn't spoil the Egyptians. We didn't spoil these Edomites. Shalom to the elect, tuning in, Yabashon Shabakatham. We didn't spoil them devils back then, you know? So what happened? But once again, that was a false prophecy. But in this modern day time, we're going to spoil the Egyptians when we get the kingdom of heaven. Because there's going to be a second Passover, you know? It's going to be a second Passover. You read about it in the book of Jeremiah, how the Lord is going to, like it says, they're no longer going to speak about how the Lord delivered the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but the Lord delivered the children of Israel out of the land of the land of the north and the four corners of the earth, man. And we are going to spoil the modern day Egyptians because we're going to have these devils run us everything that they stole. Their silver, their gold, like Scripture said, the restitution shall be according to his substance. They're not going to be able to enjoy that which they swallowed down. Okay? verse 37, Exodus 12 and 37. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children. It says, and the mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough, which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victuals. Okay, right? You know, so they had to leave in haste. Okay, verse 40. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. Okay, so when you break that down, that 30 years represents when Israel was in Egypt during the time of Joseph. Okay, where Pharaoh knew Joseph, Pharaoh was cool with Israel, and then after that, the time frame came where Joseph died. Pharaoh didn't know Israel, or Pharaoh didn't know Joseph anymore, and they oppressed Israel, but prophecy had to be fulfilled for that. The reason why that happened, and then that was a 400-year period. Okay, and it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the self same day, it came to pass that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. I'm going to show you we're a part of the Most High's army, the nation of Israel. Verse 42, it is a night to be much observed unto the Lord, meaning we're supposed to keep it. It's not something to be forgotten. And really, all of our people are supposed to be keeping the Pesach, but not all of our people are able to keep the Pesach worthily, man. So it's better they don't keep it than to keep it unworthily, okay? Because a lot of jakes, they're not in the truth. But in the kingdom of heaven, every Israelite will be keeping the Passover. But right now, only the sincere members of the elect are keeping the Passover, okay? You know? And now, of course, there are some members of the elect who are not in the truth right now, or who are just not on that level yet, right? To be keeping the Pesach. But in the kingdom, every Israelite will keep the Passover, you know. But just right now, hey, if you're serious minded, then you'd be keeping the Passover, okay, to the best of your ability. Exodus 12 and 42, it is a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is that night of the Lord to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations. And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth out aught of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. Right. And those strangers that can eat of the Passover is talking about our own people, Israelites. Okay, because you got to remember, this is an ordinance that was supposed to be kept throughout all generations. So the Lord already knew that some of our people were going to be considered strangers. It's not talking about the heathen. The heathen don't keep the Passover. It's talking about our people, man, who are once strangers, who grew up in the customs of the other nations, so on and so forth, man. Okay? It says, ye shall not break, neither shall you break a bone thereof. And it's symbolic because that's the same sentiment that happened with Yahushua. When Yahushua got crucified, they didn't break any of his bones. You know, the two malefactors, even though one of them was of the elect, the other one was a nigga, they broke their bones. You know, when the Romans came through, they seen that they were still alive. So what did they do? They broke their bones, which basically they would take their spears and swing it like a bat and crush, have a crushing blow to their knees and basically break their bones in their legs so that they couldn't stand up on that cross, which makes them die faster. That crucifixion, you got to study that crucifixion, man. For you sincere brothers and sisters out there who haven't done your research on it, study what would be the word? Study the process. I don't even want to say art because that shit is gruesome, but study the science behind crucifixion. Okay, if you haven't, I definitely recommend brothers and sisters to do that ASAP. And when you learn about that, it gives you a whole new appreciation and deeper level of appreciation for Yahweh death, man. You know, deeper than the appreciation you may already have, because you're like, God damn, the Lord went through that. Fuck, you know, like the Lord went through that for my eyes. You know, for us, like damn, bro, that's love right there. When you study that crucifixion, man, it's heavy. Like the process of being crucified. Just to kind of go into it once again, even though I may explain some of it, do your own research, man. Do your own research so you can see the depth, and you may be able to learn certain things that I may not know of. So you know, do your own research. But going into the process of crucifixion, when you're getting crucified, ultimately it comes through the death comes through something called asphyxiation, which is basically like the medical way of saying suffocation, to suffocate, to be able to not breathe. And how that works is you're being crucified, you got pierced in your wrist and your legs, your feet, right? Pierced in your, you know, the scripture say they pierced my hands and my feet. Hand really is talking about their ulnar wrist, because if you were to get pierced right in the middle of your palm, the weight of your body would just rip through. So they pierce you right here and it holds you up, okay? And then they pierce your feet, all right? So point of the matter is when you're hanging there crucified, all the weight of your body is leaning down on your chest, and then imagine your other parts of your body being pinned to the cross. So all that pressure gets put to your chest, tightens up your chest. It makes it hard for you to breathe, and that's ultimately how you die. It's a very slow, painful death. It's very agonizing. It's gruesome, man. Okay, so what they would do is they would take their spears and swing it like a bat and knock out the knees of the person being crucified, so that they couldn't stand up and relieve the pressure on their chest, because that's how you end up basically being able to breathe while you're getting crucified. You'll stand up and release some of the pressure from your chest, man, so you can breathe a little bit. So even when Yahushua was talking to the disciples, to the women that were standing by watching them get crucified, even him talking to them, those were precious words, because you got to understand, he basically can't breathe, and yet he has enough strength to hold his body up and to speak, man, while his back got all lacerated from the lashings, from him getting scourged and flogged, which that within itself was brutal. Because on those whips back then, see them Romans, those were Edomites, man. Esau, like scripture say, the Lord called them skillful to destroy. Esau knows how to torture a motherfucker, man. And on those whips that they had, the end of those whips had barbs on them, either spikes from like bones, spikes from metal. So you imagine those barbs on the end of those whips. The whip already can do enough damage, and then it has a barb on the end of it, so they're whipping. And when the barb will catch the skin, they'll rip it away. So it's pulling away flesh, pulling away muscle, pulling away, you know, all these different things that are getting caught on it, man. And they're not just, you know, just tapping it on somebody's back. They're putting all their might into it. Wow, slapping down. And then once the barbs get caught in the flesh, they're ripping it out. They're not just, you know, plucking it away. They're ripping flesh away, man. So imagine getting flogged, you know, for what, almost 40 lashes back to back, doing that, getting beaten an inch away from your life. And then you have to carry the cross that's over 100 pounds, and your body's weak, half dead. They nail you to that cross, raise you up on that cross, and now you're basically suffocating to death. It's a slow, agonizing process, man. You know, it's a terrible process. Okay, it's not something to be taken lightly. All right. So if you would knock out their knees and break their legs, essentially you can't stand up, which means that it's harder for you to breathe. And if it's harder for you to breathe, you will die faster. So when they came, knocked out the malefactor's legs, they would die faster, but Yahushua was already dead. So what they did was they pierced his side, and it said blood and water came out, man. You know? So these devils, they gotta pay, man. Okay? They gotta pay. You know, for the wickedness that they did. They gotta pay, man. Okay? But none of Yahweh's bones was broken because he was symbolic of being that sacrificial lamb on the night of the Passover. Okay? John 19, in verse 14, it says, and it was the preparation of the Passover about the 6th hour. And he saith unto the Jews, behold your king. Right? Trying to tell him, like, look, man, this is your king, man. Why you want to crucify him? But they cried out, away with him, crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar. And that's how you know, Jake, like the scripture say, John the first chapter, he came unto his own received him not. Jake, then that's how you know, like the scripture say, you have your father the devil. Jake be fried about Esau, man. We have no king but Caesar. That's what a coon would say. It says, then delivered he him therefore unto them to be crucified, and they took Yahushua and led him away. And he, bearing his cross, went forth into a place called the place of a skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha, right? And it was called Golgotha because the hill of that area, it resembled a skull, which is basically like a poetic way of the Heavenly Father showing that that was the place where Yahushua conquered death. You know, the place of a skull represents death. The hill was shaped like a skull where Yahushua was crucified. And that was the place where Yahushua conquered death. Okay? It says where they crucified him, and the two other with him on either side, and Yahushua in the midst. Okay? Right. And one of the malefactors was of the elect. The other one, he was a nigga. Right? He was scoffing on the cross. How you scoffing on the cross, man? Right? But the other malefactor rebuked him. He's like, look, this man right here is innocent. He said, we deserve to be on this cross. He said, but this man right here, he have not done anything amiss. And the Lord told him, you're gonna be with me this day in paradise. And that man is of the elect. And if you ask me, I believe that man is a prophet amongst the men of Great Millstone. Okay, I have my personal theory who I believe that brother may have been in the reincarnation or who he is today, but that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, one thing's for certain, that man is definitely of the elect. Okay. All right. It says, and Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross. And the writing was Yahushua of Nazareth, King of the Jews. And when you look on a lot of like rosaries, a lot of crosses, like jewelry, you'll see the word INRI, which is Latin, which basically means Iusus Nazarenus Rex it says Judaeorum. All right, so Iusus Nazarenus Rex Judaeorum, which means Yahushua of Nazareth, King of the Jews. All right, so Iusus would be Yahushua. Nazarenus, Nazareth. Rex is king. Just like in Spanish, the word king is rey. All right, rey, which means R-E-Y. So in Latin, it's Rex, king. And then it says Iudaeorum. So the way that it's spelled is Iudaeorum, which means Judah, right? Or of the Jews, Iudaeorum. Okay, so you'll see this a lot on above many crosses, like on jewelry and things like that. INRI. That's what that means whenever you see that on a cross. It says, which means Yahushua of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Okay. It says, this title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Yahushua was crucified was nigh to the city. And it was written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, which are the three main languages of the scriptures. And that's why we go back to the Hebrew, we go back to the Greek, we go back to the Latin, man, so we can get a deeper understanding of the words that we're reading. It says, then said the chief priests of the Jews to Pilate, write not the King of the Jews, but that he said, I am the King of the Jews. Then it says, Pilate answered, what I have written, I have written. Okay, meaning what? The Most High had a spirit on him to write that, because that was exactly what it was. That was exactly what it was. Yahushua is the King of the Jews, man. All right. It says, then the soldiers, when they had crucified Yahushua, took his garments and made 4 parts to every soldier a part, and also his coat. Now the coat was without seam, woven from the top throughout. It says, they said therefore among themselves, let us not rend it, but cast lots for it, whose it shall be, that the scripture might be fulfilled, which saith, they parted my raiment among them, and for my vesture they did cast lots. These things therefore the soldiers did. Now there stood by the cross of Yahushua his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. When Yahushua therefore saw his mother and the disciple standing by, whom he loved, which was John, he said unto his mother, woman, behold thy son. You know, so you got to imagine Yahushua on the cross, you know, barely any energy in him to speak. And like his words were very brief, as you can see. Then saith he to the disciple, behold thy mother. And from that hour, that disciple took her unto his own home. You know, he embraced her, he took care of her. You know, and that's what you see a lot amongst a lot of men who are who had really close bonds. And let's say the friend of that man dies, you know, his friend will oftentimes check on his mother, make sure his mother's good, make sure his sisters are good, his family is good, his son is straight, daughter straight, you know. That's just a Jake thing, man. Okay. And it says, after this, Yahushua, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, saith, I thirst. Now there was set a vessel full of vinegar, and they filled a sponge with vinegar and put it upon hyssop and put it to his mouth. When Yahushua therefore had received the vinegar, he said, it is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost. Okay. The Jews therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was an high day, going into the day of the Passover. Okay. So here it is. They didn't want Yahushua's body to be stuck up on that cross on the Sabbath day, but yet they'll put him to death on the Sabbath day, man. But once again, we know through the Spirit that that was a necessary evil. Okay. It says, then came the soldiers and brake the legs of the first and of the other, which was crucified with him. But when they came to Yahushua and saw that he was dead already, they brake not his legs. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came there out blood and water. And he that saw it bear record, and his record is true. And he that knoweth that he saith true, he knoweth that he saith true, that ye might believe. For these things were done, that the scriptures should be fulfilled. A bone of him shall not be broken. Right. So going back to the precept in Exodus 12 and 46. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house. Neither shall you break a bone thereof. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Thus did all the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass the selfsame day that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. So that's the book of Exodus 12 right there, which is basically the chapter the chapter of the Passover, man. You know, which we are getting ready to approach onto. Okay, and now is a good time if you haven't already to go on a fast and really, meditate in the spirit and just, even if you have to make a list of all the things that that through the spirit that you need to work on about yourself and purge that. Pray to Yahweh Shai to purge that from you, man, because that's what this is all about. It's all about purging out that old leaven so that we may become a new lump. Let's get that precept. First Corinthians chapter 11 and start at verse 23. For I have received of the Lord that which also I delivered unto you, that the Lord Yahweh Shai, this is the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me. So when we keep the Passover, we do it in remembrance of Yahweh Shai. After the same manner also he took the cup when he had supped, saying, this cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do ye as oft as ye drink it in remembrance of me. Right. So when we take the Passover, we drink the unleavened bread. Okay, we drink the wine. We do it in remembrance of Yahweh Shai's body. It says, for as often as ye eat this bread and drink this cup, ye do shew the Lord's death till he come. Right? Meaning what? You're remembering the sanctity of Yahweh Shai's blood being sacrificed, the mercy of the Lord, and you're putting and just like how Yahweh Shai died on the cross, now you're crucifying that old man. You're purging out that leaven and you're becoming a new creature in Yahweh Shai as often as you do it. Okay? It says, wherefore whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of the Lord unworthily shall be guilty of the body of the Lord, shall be guilty of the body and blood of the Lord. Right. So you're not supposed to keep the Passover with the wrong type of spirit, wrong type of mentality, coming into the Passover with, grudging, old leaven, things that need to be purged out of you. You're supposed to come with that spiritual reset, man. Okay, and understand the feast that you're partaking in. This is not a light thing. Okay. It says, but let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. For he that eateth and drinketh unworthily eateth and drinketh damnation to himself, not discerning the Lord's body. Right. So if you're partaking of the Pesach unworthily, that could be damnation unto you, man. That is damnation unto you. Okay. It says, yeah, that's the point on that right there. Let me grab the other precept, one where it says, purge the old leaven that you may be a new lump. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 5, the Wadi Bashim Shai. I'll start at verse 6. Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump? So it says a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump, man. And it's the same thing with doctrine. A little bit of false doctrine will contaminate the whole ministry, man. So we got to be on point all throughout. It's the same thing with leaven and bread. If you put a little leaven, it's gonna make the whole bread rise. You put a little bit of dirt in water, that whole water is gonna be contaminated, man. Right? So it says a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. Okay. It says, purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump. For it says, as ye are unleavened, for even Mashiach, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. Okay. So we gotta purge out that old leaven, man. Those unwanted habits, those undesirable traits about ourselves, character flaws, things that we know we could work on, man. We're supposed to purge these different things, man, so we could be acceptable in the sight of Yahweh Shemashai. You know, and of course, you want to do this leading up to the Passover. You don't want to, have to wait on the night of the Pesach to be like, oh man, you know what, nah, get that out your house now, okay? That spirit of spring cleaning, this is really where it goes back to, okay? It says, therefore, let us keep the feast not with old leaven. So by the time you keep the feast, that old leaven is supposed to be gone, okay? So it says, therefore, let us keep the feast not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness. It says, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Okay? Unleavened bread of sincerity and truth, man. So that's the type of spirit and mindset we need to be coming with leading up to this Pesach, this year of so-called 2026, right? We're already in a new year according to the Hebrew calendar. We're really in a new year. So and another thing too, man, is that the things that are getting ready to happen after this Passover, hey, I truly believe through the spirit that Yahweh Shemashai is going to turn this thing up, man. I truly believe that. So we want to make sure that we're getting our spirits ready now to the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemashai. Okay? I said I was going to speak on this earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and grab it. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon, going into, the damage that the Lord did back in ancient Egypt. After that, Wisdom of Solomon 17, it says, for great are thy judgments and cannot be expressed. Therefore, unnurtured souls have erred. It says, for when unrighteous men thought to oppress the holy nation, they being shut up in their houses, the prisoners of darkness, and fettered with the bonds of a long night, lay there exiled from the eternal providence. So this is scripture going into how the Lord brought that plague upon Egypt, and it says, for while they were supposed to lie hid in their secret sins, they were scattered under a dark veil of forgetfulness, being horribly astonished and troubled with strange apparitions. So Yahweh Shemashah was plaguing them. Not only did they have the plague of darkness, they also saw demons, strange apparitions. They were hallucinating. They were hearing noises. We're gonna get into it. Lord was jacking their ass up. It says, for neither might the corner that held them keep them from fear, but noises as of waters falling down sounded about them, and sad visions appeared unto them with heavy countenances. So Most High was tormenting them. They were hearing water falling down. They were backed up into a corner, and they were still afraid. They were seeing demonic faces and shit, sad visions of heavy countenances. You ever seen those movies with them different demonic faces that they show? That's what the fuck they were seeing, man. Just all up in their shit. Okay? It says, no power of the fire might give them light, neither could the bright flames of the stars endure to lighten that horrible night. Okay? So they couldn't even see, if they were to lit a torch in front of them, right in front of their fucking face, they wouldn't even be able to see the fire, man. That's how dark it was. It says, only there appeared unto them a fire kindled of itself, very dreadful, For being much terrified, they thought the things which they saw to be worse than the sight that they saw not. Right. So they were seeing, different demons, right? Because the angels are known as uh, ministering spirits of fire, right? So they're seeing a fire kindled in itself. They're seeing different spirits. Okay, they're seeing spirits. You know, it says, as for the illusions of art magic, they were put down. It says, and their vaunting and wisdom was reproved with disgrace. It says, for they that promised to drive away terrors and troubles from a sick soul were sick themselves of fear, worthy to be laughed at. So the Lord made mockery of them. And these different, magicians, warlocks back in Egypt, you know, they were the guys people will go to drive away fear, right? And to, to get protection on the left hand side. Well, it said the Lord said, look, now look at them. They were afraid. Their fears weren't driven away. That was the Lord mocking Egypt, man. Because Egypt was a great superpower back then in the earth. So the Lord humbled them. He brought honor upon him through raising up Pharaoh, like it says in the book of Romans 9:17. Niggas was scared. It says a fear worthy to be laughed at, you know? And that's how it be. Hey, sometimes when them demons pull up on you, it's like, what the fuck, But really, the demons are not to be feared, man. The ones who are to be feared is Yahweh Shemashai. Okay? Straight up. And that's what the demons do. They feed off of your fear. The demon knows when you're afraid, and they feed off of that shit. Okay? But you really only supposed to fear the Lord. And it says, for though no terrible thing did fear them, yet being scared with beasts that passed by and hissing of serpents, they died for fear, denying that they saw the air, which could of no side be avoided. For wickedness condemned by her own witness is very timorous, and being pressed with conscience always forecasted grievous things. Let's go into that word timorous.
Timorous. Timorous.
And is an adjective meaning fearful, timid, shy, or easily frightened, of indicating a lack of confidence or excessive caution. It describes someone nervous, hesitant, or actions that are overly hesitant. Synonyms: timid, fearful, nervous, shy, apprehensive, retiring, diffident, mousy. Derived from the Latin timor, which means fear. Scary ass nigga. Scary ass nigga. Yeah. Hey, but the Lord is terrible, man. The Lord is the real scared straight. Remember, Yahweh Shemashai, one of the titles of the Lord is the King of Terrors, man. The King of Terrors. Our beloved brother said, the one who created fear, right? The one who created fear, the Lord created fear. So what are some of the things that the Most High has up his sleeve, man? How he can terrify a man. Even in these times now, Yahweh Shemashai said, the mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. It said the mighty men have cried there bitterly. It says, ask now and see whether a man doth travail with child with his hands on his loins. The Lord know how to make a grown man cry. All right. The Most High created fear. What do you think he could do to fucking scare a man? Lord is terrible, bro. This is, you don't want to play with Yahweh Shemashai. You don't want to play with Yahweh Shemashai. Okay.
It's verse 12. For fear is nothing else but a betraying of the succors which reason offereth. Right. So fear ultimately is you decided to betray reasoning, the support, the succor, or the support, the help that comes from reasoning. You decided to pick fear of the unknown and the what ifs over reasoning and trusting in Yahweh Bashem Shai, who was the one ultimately bringing the terror, bringing the dread, bringing the different circumstances, man. You decided to trust in the what ifs and the unknown instead of trusting in reasoning and trusting in Yahweh Bashem Shai. It says, in the expectation from within, meaning that anxiety that you get from the what ifs, being less, counted the ignorance more than the cause which bringeth the torments. Right. So the expectation from within is less than the ignorance, the what ifs, right, of what's bringing the torment. Okay. It says, but they sleeping the same. As a matter of fact, let's get it in a different translation, because that Wisdom of Solomon 17 and 12 through 13 is very heavy when you think about it. Because when you truly understand that precept, you're like, hey, man, ain't nothing to really be afraid of but the Lord. Because that's a lot of times what fear is, anyways. It's the fear of the unknown. But you got to know how to walk through the unknown with confidence. Wisdom of Solomon 17 and 12 through 13 in the GNT. Fear is nothing but the failure to use the help that reason gives. Exactly. It says, when you lack the confidence to rely on reason, you give into the fears caused by ignorance. And then when you read it according to the AI overview, it says, according to the Good News Translation, GNT on Bible Hub, Wisdom of Solomon 17 and 12 states that fear is merely a failure to use rational help, leading people to surrender to fears caused by ignorance when they lack confidence in reason. It describes fear as a loss of inner support, often born of a guilty conscience. Right, right. Because when you know you ain't right, all right, when you know that you know, you've been doing wickedly, you're gonna be afraid in the day of death. You're gonna be afraid in the day of judgment because you know, man, damn, that's you know what's coming to you, pretty much. So of course you'll be afraid. But if you've been doing right by the Lord to the best of your ability, you've been living a clean lifestyle, you've been living with integrity, you're not gonna be afraid in the day of judgment because you know, hey, how much I got me? I've been serving the Lord. I've been doing what I need to be doing, you know. But if you ain't living right, you know that, hey, man, you know the Lord ain't with you. You know, of course. Okay, and of course we all have that initial fight or flight response. That's just the programming of the flesh. But at the end of the day, you know, the fear of the Lord kicks in, and it's like I have nothing to be afraid of. All right, you know, not trying to tempt the Lord, but it's like you ready to die. That's the type of mindset, because it's like, I mean, you know, I fear the Lord, man. I fear the Lord. Okay, of course you're not trying to tempt the Lord, and you're not asking for that upon yourself, but that's the mindset, because it's like I've been fearing the Lord. You know, I've been serving Him. I've been doing what I need to be doing. So why should I be afraid of, you know, the day of judgment, the day of trouble? Okay. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 17. And that's going to be the type of spirit that the Lord's going to have on His elect when the guillotines show up. The elect going to be bold in that day, man. They're going to be bold in that day. The elect not going to be moving fearful, timorous, right? They gonna be ready to die in that day, man. Because it's like shit. They like sure say they love not their lives instead of death. You might have brothers fuck around and push off the martial law soldiers and run to the fucking guillotine, man. Like, yes, please do me the favor. I fucking hate this place. You know, because remember when the Lord gonna have that same ancient spirit He had on the seven brothers in the book of Maccabees, Maccabees, the seventh chapter, and their mother. They were all courageous that day. It said they died manfully. It said they marveled at the young man's courage. He held forth his hands manfully, like, yes, nigga, cut my shit off. I wish you would. You know what I'm saying? Like, go ahead. That's the type of spirit the Lord about to have on these men in these last days, bro. The men of the Lord, people gonna be looking at them like, yo, these dudes is crazy. But it's because their boldness in the Lord, man. Their trust in the Lord. Yahweh Shemashai rousing back up that lion-like ancient masculine spirit in them, man. In this modern soft world, you know, this modern social media age, man. Okay. Wisdom of Solomon 17 and verse 14. It says, but they sleeping the same sleep that night, which was indeed intolerable, and which came upon them out of the bottoms of the inevitable hell, were partly vexed with monstrous apparitions, and partly fainted with their heart failing them, for a sudden fear and not looked for came upon them. Right. So some of them was dying of heart attacks and shit. And that's the same spirit that's gonna be happening these last days. Like I should say, men's hearts failing them for fear. Okay, for the things that are coming on the earth. Like it says in the book of Luke. It says, so then whosoever there fell down was straightly kept shut up in a prison without iron bars. Meaning what? Nigga falling down in a fetal position. You know, tuck his knees and shit, scared, rocking back and forth, bugged out of his mind. Like, this nigga just scared. Ain't moving. He in a prison, but there ain't no bars around him. Why? Because his fear paralyzed him, man. You know, because that's one of the responses of fear. Shock. People freeze. They have fight, flight, and freeze. And some motherfuckers, they get so scared they just sit there. They just freeze, man. Some people they run. Some people they fight. You know, but that the Lord had them niggas frozen, man, paralyzed. Like I said, they were in a prison with no bars. All right, niggas was scared. You know, and it says, for whether he were husbandman or shepherd or a laborer in the field, he was overtaken and endured that necessity which could not be avoided, for they were all bound with one chain of darkness. And I was talking about that plague of darkness. Whether it were a whistling wind, which is going into these hallucinations, or a melodious noise of birds among the spreading branches, or a pleasing fall of water running violently, or a terrible sound of stones cast down, or a running that cannot be seen of skipping beast, or a roaring voice of most savage wild beast, or a rebounding echo from the hollow mountains. These things made them to swoon for fear. And you go into that word swoon, it means to faint. So the Lord, man, he terrified them guys, man. He was torturing their ass, man. Okay, for what they did to his people. It says, for the whole world shine with clear light, and none were hindered in their labor. Right. So on that initial night of darkness, everywhere else in the world besides Egypt was shining. None was hindered in their labor. They weren't going through that plague of darkness. So, you know, here, let's just say, for instance, you're in the land of Egypt and the Lord brought that plague of darkness. Well, over there in Iran or over there in the land of Canaan or wherever the cities were at nighttime, everybody chilling, everybody doing their day-to-day thing. Meanwhile, the Lord fucking plaguing them Egyptians over there on the other side of the world, man. Fucking their ass up. Okay? And even in the land of Goshen, which was also in the land of Egypt, that was where the Israelites dwelt. They had light in their dwellings that night, man. But the Lord was fucking up them Egyptians. That was a surgical strike. That was a targeted, deliberate strike against the Egyptians. It says, over them only was spread in heavy night an image of that darkness which should afterwards receive them, but yet were they unto themselves more grievous than the darkness. Right. Because the Lord was jacking them up, man. Okay. I'm gonna keep reading. Wisdom of Solomon 18 and 13. Nevertheless, thy saints had a very great light, whose voice they hearing and not seeing their shape, because they also had not suffered the same things, they counted them happy. Right, the Israelites in the land of Goshen. But for that they did not hurt them now, of whom they had been wronged before. They thanked them and besought them pardon for that they had been enemies. Right, like Scripture say, when a man's ways please the Lord, he make even his enemies to be at peace with him. All right, so that's what happened. So here it is. The Egyptians at first they were uh, hating on the Israelites, and then after they was thankful for them. How you doing, brother? You all right?
I never see the other brother.
I'll be out here by myself.
Oh,
Yeah.
where's your church at?
Right here, man. Right here.
You have the which group you with?
So I teach by myself, but I subscribe to the apostles.
Okay, so who's the ones that you
I
you
don't.
have a church at?
Nah.
Oh wow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How old are you?
I'm 25.
Well, you one of the first brothers I've seen that. You know, you trying to get one of the church down here?
I mean, if it's the Lord's will in due season, but for right now, I'm just doing my thing, just working out my own salvation. Huh?
What kind of work you do for?
Oh, like my business?
Yeah.
Well, I don't really want to get into all that.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, sir. But
Okay, well, do you? Let me ask you a question. Religious, biblical.
uh-huh.
When is the Shabbat for you guys?
I go by the lunar calendar.
So it rotates.
Yeah.
Okay, when is the Shabbat today?
Well, the Shabbat is if I'm not mistaken, that's what it's leaving my mind right now. But it's
sundown Sunday to sundown Monday this year.
nah. I think it's actually Wednesday, Thursday.
Well, I actually calculated it, but that's okay. That's fine. But at least you know it's by the sun, but not lunar. But it's okay.
No, it's by the moon. It's by the moon, brother.
Okay, well if you say so.
Well,
in Genesis, it talks about how God created great two. You know the moon does not give off light; it reflects light.
Nah.
Okay.
Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, but it's by the moon because when you read Exodus, you read Leviticus, Genesis, it says the moon was for feast, signs, seasons, and then the moon also dictates the Sabbath days as well, because the new moon appoints the Sabbath. It's a high holy day. So every new moon, that's the day of the Sabbath, and then 7 days from that, leading all the way up to the next new moon, is the Sabbath cycle. So it's lunar. Yes, sir.
It's a calculation then.
Yeah.
But I won't fight with that because you know what's gonna happen. The most I'm proud of you. The most I will bring that knowledge to us.
Yes, sir.
I come out here just to work out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I just put on stuff like this, and I come and do my little thing. But I'm so proud that my young brother is doing his thing.
All praise to Yahweh Shemashai.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is true.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, brother.
You address. I'm just gonna finish up.
Yes, sir.
I like when I see you, though.
Take care, sir. Yes, sir. This is Wisdom of Solomon 18 and verse 2. I'll read it again. It says, "But for that they did not hurt them now, of whom they had been wronged before. They thanked them and besought them pardon for that they had been enemies. Instead whereof thou gavest them a burning pillar of fire, both to be a guide of the unknown journey and a harmless son to entertain them honorably." It says, "For they were worthy to be deprived of light and imprisoned in darkness, who had kept thy son shut up, by whom the uncorruptible light of the law was to be given unto the world." So just going into the Egyptians and what they did against our people, things like that, But let me switch gears for a quick second. Sirach 43 and verse 6, he made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. It says, from the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. So we go based off the moon, the lunar cycle. You know, that's how it works. Okay, and it says a light that decreases in her perfection, meaning the lunar phases. You know, the new moon, waning crescent, you know, waxing gibbous, all that other good stuff, man. You know, that's what we go based off. The moon, the lunar cycle. So the sun represents the hour of the day, right? Like noon is the highest day, sunset is the end of the day, you know, sunrise, all that other good stuff. And then you have different hours of the daytime. That's what the sun constitutes. But the moon dictates the feasts, the signs, the seasons, the months, the high holy days. That's all based off the moon. And the moon has its own light, you know, so it's not necessarily that the moon is reflecting from the sunlight. It's the moon is a light within itself, and the sun is a greater light. You know, so that Jake, he was wrong for saying that. But you know, hey, Lord willing, you know, Most High wink at his ignorance, you know. But but nonetheless, I just wanted to clear that up through the spirit, just in case anybody on the flock may have need some clarification on that, right? Because I'm sure he's not the only one who might think that. Because that's the thing about what a lot of these different false doctrines is that a lot of times the one who says it is not the only one who feels that way, you know. So, and he ain't necessarily scoff, you know what I'm saying? He ain't scoff, you know. And you know, so may the Lord wink at his ignorance, but at the end of the day, that's just simply not true. Okay. And right now, the Pesach or the Pesach, yes, but the Sabbath is Wednesday, Thursday. You know, because it just changed not too long ago, but it is Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, so Wednesday, Thursday. All right, but we once again we go based off the lunar cycle. That's how we dictate the high holy days. Because even in the book of Psalms 81, where it talks about the new moon, blow the trumpet in the new moon, it's a feast day, right? How is that based off the sun? If we're blowing it in the new moon, you know? So it's all through the spirit. Okay, but I just wanted to throw that out there through the spirit for edification's sake. That Jake wasn't right for saying that. Psalms 81:3, it says, blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. All right, it says, for this was a statute in Israel and a law of the power of Jacob. Okay, yeah. So it just goes back to Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23 be touching on the same thing. So Ecclesiastes 43:6, he made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. From the moon is the sign of feast, not the sun, the moon. From the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven. Okay, right. So it says the month is called after her name. The word moon literally means month. Okay, so it says the month is called after her name, meaning that every new moon is a new month. That's how it works. You know, so I just wanted to clear that up through the spirit. And there's so much more precepts we can get to, you know, cut that. But at the end of the day, you know, that Jake, I kind of like him, man. I kind of like him, man. I hope, you know, I hope the Lord have mercy on him, man. You know, but at the end of the day, truth is truth. You know, right is right and wrong is wrong. And hey, brother, I may like you, but at the end of the day, you know, that false doctrine got to be dealt with. It is what it is. You know, it is what it is, man. Okay, but it don't matter if I like you. It matter if the Lord like you. That's really what it is, man. Okay, because there's some people that brothers make quote unquote, you know, I don't want to like seem contradicting, but I'm sure you understand where I'm coming from. There may be some people that that brothers like, but the Lord like, no, that nigga gotta go. You know, so you know, at the end of the day, it's about if the Lord like you or not. You know, and there may be some people that you don't like, but the Lord like, nah, he one of mine. Ain't shit you can do about it. Ain't shit you can do about it, man. So you just gotta roll with the spirit. But at the end of the day, you know, he an older Jake. May the Lord wink at his ignorance, man. It is what it is. But nonetheless, getting back to this Wisdom of Solomon. Wisdom of Solomon 18. And Verse 3. Instead, whereof thou gavest them a burning pillar of fire, which was a chariot, both to be a guide of the unknown journey. Woo! It was a guide of the unknown journey, meaning when they were going through the wilderness, man. So Yahweh Shemashah, he's with us in the unknown journey, man. When we going through that wilderness. Same thing with the time of Jacob's trouble. That's going to be an unknown journey. Because really, Jacob's trouble, where the fuck are we going? We're just surviving day to day, pilgrims on the earth, man. Going here, going there, just trying not to fucking die. Trying to survive. That's ultimately what Jacob's trouble is going to be, waiting for Yahweh to come back. You know, surviving day to day, waiting for Yahweh to come back. Because where the fuck are we going? There's nowhere to go clock in to go to work. You know, there's no, you know, it's like, you know what I'm saying? So it's an unknown journey, but Yahweh Shemashah, he's going to be with us, man. The angels are going to be there with us too. It says Michael shall stand up, the great prince, during that time of trouble. That's Daniel 12. I'll grab that. These are the times we're coming into, man. The Wadi Shemashah. Daniel chapter 12. Trying to be careful with my pages. They got stuck together. Ooh, jeez. Daniel 12:1. At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even at that same time, and at that time that people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Yep. So Michael, which in the Hebrew is Mayaka Allah, he who was like the Most High, Michael is the chief archangel of war. And it says he's going to stand up, meaning what? There's going to be a time of divine intervention. We're going to need divine intervention in them times, because that's going to be a time of war out there, man. And really, we're going to be outnumbered. You know, what do brothers have at most? You know, not saying brothers is out here moving carnal, but what you got at most, bro? A gun, a pistol, a rifle? In comparison to Esau and his martial law troops, who you think will run out of bullets first, man? You know, brother may have a machete, a bow. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying Yahweh Shemashah can't put the spirit on a man to put in work with just that, but at the end of the day, you know, we outnumber, man. We're gonna need the help of the Lord. Okay, we're gonna need divine intervention. We're gonna need the help of Yahweh Shemashah, and we can't put our trust in our weapons anyways, because, like Scripture say, I will not be saved by my bow. I will not put my trust in my bow. Neither shall my sword save me. So we have to put our trust in the help of the name of the Lord, man. That's the only way we're gonna make it in these times. That's the only way. You know, Esau, he coming with that pressure. Them different martial law troops, they're waiting to get their hands dirty, man. They've been training, you know, their whole career to lock down the cities and torture the people, do all these different things. That's what they're waiting for. Okay. So we can't put our trust in nothing else but Yahweh Shemashah. And the Lord, he's going to help us. He's going to give us divine intervention. Okay. Michael shall stand up. I want to go into that word stand up in the Hebrew. See what it says. And see, I wasn't going to tell that guy about the Passover. I almost did, but you know, it's like the Lord stopped me, because it's like, what, you know, you going to tell that man about the Passover? Like, not trying to get on him, but it's like, you know, he would be keeping it unworthily, man. That would have been an example of keeping it unworthily, you know? So I'm going to tell him, yeah, brother, just so you know, the Passover coming up on Wednesday. Nah, man. Nah, you know. Jake talk about some keep studying. Jake be something else sometimes. Jake said, keep studying. Yeah, okay. You right, brother. You right. And once again, I ain't trying to get on him, but it's just funny how Jake be moving sometimes. All right, so I'm going to go into the word stand up, and it's the Hebrew word imad, which means to stand. So this is Strong's H5975. Imad, stand, remain, endure, take one stand. To stand, be standing in attitude, stand forth, take a stand. to present oneself, attend upon, be or become servant of. Woo! So it says be or become servant of, meaning what? The angels are gonna come minister unto us, man. That's heavy right there. Yeah, it's just the Hebrew word imad, which I thought it may have been something different, but imad, meaning to stand. You know, that's why you hear brothers say, imad, and then they say, what, rise, face the east, stand, face the east, right? I'm forgetting the other part of it, so forgive me, but instead of me butchering it, I just ain't gonna speak on it. But brothers say, what, imad, and then rise, face the east, stand and face the east. Okay. So I'm gonna hit pause on this Wisdom Solomon 18. I wanted to get that precept where it says that Almighty Word came down. Yep, Wisdom Solomon 18 and 15. It says, "Thine Almighty Word." I'm gonna start at verse. Woo, shit. You know what? I'll keep reading. Wisdom Solomon 18 and verse 3. Instead whereof thou gavest them a burning pillar of fire, both to be a guide of the unknown journey and a harmless sun to entertain them honorably, for they were worthy to be deprived of light and imprisoned in darkness, who had kept thy sun shut up, by whom the uncorrupt light of the law was given unto the world. And when they had determined to slay the babes of the saints, one child being cast forth and saved to reprove them, right? Because why? They used to kill the Hebrew babies. When Moses was first born, they were slaying all the Hebrew babies from 2 years old and under. Also, they used to feed the Hebrew babies to alligators or crocodiles, right? Because in Egypt they have crocodiles. Over here in the Americas we have alligators. But they did that to us in the Americas too. Okay. And it says that one child being saved to reprove them was Moses, our forefather Moses, right? Mashah, drawn of the waters. Thou tookest away the multitude of their children and destroyedest them altogether in a mighty water. Of that night were our fathers certified afore, that assuredly knowing unto what oath they had given credence, they might afterwards be of good cheer. It says, so of thy people was accepted both the salvation of the righteous and destruction of the enemies. For wherewith thou didst punish our adversaries, by the same thou didst glorify us, whom thou hadst called. For the righteous children of good men did sacrifice secretly, and with one consent made a holy law, that the saints should be alike partakers of the same good and evil. The fathers now singing out the songs of praise. It says, but on the other side, there sounded an ill according cry of the enemies, and a lamentable noise was carried abroad for children that were bewailed. It says, the master and the servant were punished after one manner, and like as the king, so suffered the common person. So they all together had innumerable dead with one kind of death, neither were the living sufficient to bury them. For in one moment the noblest offspring of them was destroyed. For whereas they would not believe anything by reason of the enchantments upon the destruction of the firstborn, they acknowledged this people to be the sons of the Most High. For while all things were in quiet silence, and that was in the midst of her swift course, right? Talking about the night of the destroyer, thine almighty word leaped down from heaven. Who is the almighty word? Our Lord Yahweh Shai. It say he leaped down from heaven out of thy royal throne as a fierce man of war into the midst of a land of destruction, and brought thine unfeigned commandment as a sharp sword, and standing up filled all things with death, and it touched the heaven, but it stood upon the earth. Yeah, okay. That was the night when Yahweh Shai came through as a destroyer and slew all the firstborn in Egypt, man. Okay. So, there's more that we can get into through the spirit, but really this camp lesson was like a pre-Passover type camp lesson, man. Okay. And before we wrap up through the spirit, just a few things to mention. Once again, purge your spirit. If you go on a fast, right? Get your spirit ready, prepare your mind, get the leaven out your crib. Okay, and just keep it simple this week. Keep it simple. You know what I'm saying? and just really meditate on the goodness of the Lord and meditate about how Yahweh Shemashai is getting ready to shut this bitch down, man. And you know, now it's time to just really focus on what we need to be doing to get right with Yahweh Shemashai. You know, keep on studying, right? But studying is not just reading the book, it's also applying the book, man. Okay, throughout your day-to-day. But that's the point. You know, Lord willing, this camp lesson was edifying, giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, that were well, peace, and blessings to the elect of the nation of Israel. Shalom, Abba, Kwam Yasharala. Shalom to the elect tuning in. Yahweh Shem Shabbat. Shalom.